Waking in an unfamiliar room, the protagonist stares at his clawed hands in utter confusion while questioning his reality. Suddenly, the door bursts open as a group of women rushes in, frantically announcing that Jakuin has finally awakened. The girls crowd around him with overwhelming affection, bickering over who has the right to be close to him while claiming titles like legitimate wife. This is the story of the ruler who stands at the apex of darkness, the demon king known as Yuukyuu. It has been several thousand years since he first ascended the throne to rule over the entirety of the demon world. Throughout those millennia, countless brave heroes have journeyed forth with the sole ambition of reaching his castle. Yet without fail, he has crushed every single challenger who dared to test his might against his absolute power. As the war between demons and humans dragged on, the male human population was decimated, leaving women as the overwhelming majority. Humanity teetered on the very brink of extinction, reduced to a state where leaving behind descendants became nearly impossible. Despite these dire odds, a group of humans managed to push through the defenses and corner the Demon King once more. The masked Demon King realized with a scoff that humanity had finally arrived with a power that surpassed his own. The female warriors stood in tense silence, gripping their weapons as they stared down their cornered prey. One of the warriors declared that with one final sword strike, their greatest enemy Yuukyuu would fall and it would all be over. Before delivering the killing blow, the hero demanded to see his true face and asked her comrade Anasudo for agreement. Anasudo concurred, noting that while he hadn't shown his face in thousands of years, the moment of truth had arrived. The group collectively insisted that they wished to witness his true visage at least one last time before his death. One threatened to shatter his mask with an arrow if he refused, asking Lovely if she shared the sentiment. While Kiruru admitted curiosity, another warrior dismissed the pleasantries, stating she only cared about chopping his head off quickly. Devias expressed a violent desire to punch the face of the one responsible for turning her life into an endless cycle of battles. Acknowledging their demands, the Demon King turned his back to them and admitted that their request was valid. He raised his hand to his face, agreeing to reveal what lay beneath the mask for one final time. The warriors watched with bated breath, their expressions shifting to shock as the mask began to come away. Internally, Yuukyuu mused that even his subordinates rarely saw him, wondering how long it had been since he last exposed his face. He looked out with weary eyes, self-deprecatingly wondering if he just looked like a silver-haired loser smiling wretchedly. Revealing a gentle, handsome face, he smiled and asked the stunned heroes if they were surprised by such a pathetic sight. He explained that despite his youthful appearance mirroring theirs, he was an immortal being who had stopped aging. His gaze held the weight of history as he declared himself someone who had lived through long, endless years. The heroes were left completely flabbergasted, muttering in confusion as they realized their enemy was actually a man. Yuukyuu maintained his gentle smile, preparing to address the shocked group directly. Addressing the 5 strong and beautiful Valkyries, the Demon King asked if their curiosity was finally satisfied. The heroines are left stammering in confusion, completely thrown off balance by the Demon King's unexpected compliment about their beauty. Yuukyuu tilts his head innocently, clarifying that he was merely offering a compliment and wondering if he said something strange. A realization strikes the Demon King that the male population in the human world must have decreased drastically to warrant such a reaction. He deduces that these warriors have lived their entire lives without any real contact with men. With a mix of pity and arrogance, he looks down at the blushing girls and declares their situation utterly pathetic. He stands firm in his observation, stating plainly that their lack of experience is an unavoidable fact of their era. The archer trembles, overwhelmed that such a comment is coming from an ancient being who has observed humanity for thousands of years. Yuukyuu spreads his arms and graciously tells them they should hold their heads high and be proud of their beauty. He muses that if he had won the war, it would have been a terrible shame to bury such beautiful bodies in the earth. With a dark smirk, he admits he probably would have taken possession of them to make them his own. His expression softens into regret as he laments that he will not be able to witness the world they create after his death. He pauses, preparing to deliver what he believes will be his final, dignified decree. Resigning himself to defeat, he shouts his well wishes, hoping they find happiness as women in the peaceful world to come. Instead of striking him down, one of the warriors blushes deeply and asks with concern if he is feeling all right. Her mind completely misinterprets his noble speech, and she stammers in shock that she has just been proposed to. Succumbing to his charm, she decides that it is impossible to resist being courted by such a handsome man. The warriors immediately sheath their weapons and declare the battle over, vowing to protect the Demon King instead of killing him. One fighter praises his impeccable taste and composure, marveling that such a wonderful man actually exists. The decision is unanimous as they agree the only logical option is marriage, refusing to let anyone harm their new favorite. Yuukyuu is swarmed by the affectionate mob, who bicker territorially over him while he panics at their sudden shift in attitude. Ignoring his confusion, they decide to announce his death to the public while secretly kidnapping him for themselves. The group enthusiastically agrees to a proposal that they will discuss who gets to keep him as a husband after they escape. As they tightly bind him with ropes, Yuukyuu desperately begs for death, demanding the honorable end befitting a defeated general. Realizing his pleas are falling on deaf ears, the Demon King's eye flashes with a dangerous resolve to end this farce. He screams at them to get away, deciding to use his last reserves of magic to self-destruct rather than live in misery. The women recoil in shock, realizing that his body is rapidly filling with destructive magical energy. Analyzing the flow of energy, they pinpoint the source of the magical buildup to the horn on his head. Recognizing the danger, one of the warriors immediately shouts for Anasuto to take action. Anasuto responds instantly, preparing to cast a binding spell while leaving the rest of the operation to Shiny. A sharp sound cuts through the air as the warriors launch their countermeasure to stop his suicide attempt. With a single, decisive stroke, the warrior slices through the Demon King's horn to sever his magical connection and prevent his self-destruction. Yuukyuu is left in shock, questioning whether he made a fatal error in assessing his own strength against these overwhelming opponents. The women confirm that without the horn, he no longer possesses enough magical energy to take his own life. To ensure he remains quiet and compliant, they recall that Lovely possesses a specific item perfect for restraining him. The last thing Yuukyuu sees in his castle is the terrifying sight of the girls agreeing to cut off his other horn just to make him look symmetrical. Consciousness slowly returns to the Demon King as he blinks his eyes open, waking up in an unfamiliar environment. He looks out at a landscape he has never seen before, realizing with a heavy heart that he failed to die and has been taken somewhere unknown. A voice asks if he likes this quiet place, but his attention snaps to a strange jewel that has been embedded in his chest. He demands to know where he is and what they plan to do, but his captor simply gives him a vague, evasive answer. Blushing with excitement, the girl refuses to reveal their location, admitting it would be troublesome if he tried to return to his castle immediately. She playfully adds that it would make her very happy if he would simply call her by her name, Shiny. The moment is interrupted as the other warriors burst in, accusing Shiny of cheating by getting a head start on wooing him. Divya steps forward with confidence, declaring that a strong man like him needs an equally strong woman by his side. Lovely the archer introduces herself, flirting that while she once aimed to wound his body, she now intends to aim solely for his heart. The quiet girl, Kiruru, stares intensely at him and ominously states that she is always watching him. Anist introduces herself, promising to serve him with the magical power she has cultivated specifically for the role of a legitimate wife. Yuukyuu stares in horror, realizing this is the first time in his thousands of years of life that he deeply regrets his own words. He accepts that he has appealed to some truly dreadful humans as they declare he will spend the rest of his life in this house with them. The group declares that from this day forward, Jakuin will be living with them under the same roof. One of the girls internally laments that she would have preferred to be alone with him, but circumstances prevented it. She sighs in frustration, noting that the other women are simply too persistent to be shaken off. Watching the chaotic display, the Demon King stares with dead eyes and wonders if his captors are even sane. Convinced they are completely mental for wanting to cohabit with their mortal enemy, he resolves to escape immediately. Although his magical power is gone, he scans the area for any possible exit from his new prison, relying on his ability to run. He spots plenty of trees and rocks surrounding the mansion that could serve as perfect hiding spots for his getaway. Seizing the moment while the girls are distracted by their internal bickering, he attempts to slip away unnoticed. As one of the girls notices her husband moving, Yuukyuu bids the Valkyries a hasty farewell and sprints for freedom. The women cry out his name in shock as they realize their beloved prize is making a run for it. A commanding voice orders him to sit, and his body violently slams into a submissive posture against his will. Yuukyuu stares in horror as his body moves completely independently of his will, leaving him confused and humiliated. Gritting his teeth, he realizes that he cannot let his guard down for even a single second around these women. One warrior smugly remarks that implanting the Jewel of Eternal Servitude was a brilliant strategic decision. She explains that they looted the artifact from the Fire Dragon King just prior to their invasion of the Demon King's castle. The jewel is revealed to be the most coercive object in existence among all known sorcery gems. Its power effectively seals any rebellious action from suicide to escape, acting as a perfect insurance policy despite being incomplete. Lovely cheerfully notes that it prevents him from running or biting his tongue, though she briefly questions the morality of using it on her husband. Since he is now safely secured, the group decides it is time to inform Yuukyuu about the location of his new home. Shiny takes credit for the revelation, noting that thanks to Kiruru's efforts, she can now disclose exactly where they are. Yuukyuu is shocked to learn he is on the continent of Totemotoi at the edge of the Kangoku region, literally the opposite side of the world from his castle. They explain that Kiruru's mastery of space-time magic allows her to teleport them instantly to any location she has previously visited. Yuukyuu realizes with sinking dread that this is the worst possible location, a place completely void of hope. The region is a developing country with a low population and little civilization, making it the perfect environment to isolate someone. He wonders if the magical barrier was erected not to keep people out, but to ensure he never escapes despite his weakened state. Setting aside his geography, the Demon King narrows his eyes as a more pressing concern occupies his mind. He confronts the heroes directly, acknowledging his defeat but demanding to know what has become of the ongoing war. He reasons that if the heroes won, the world would never tolerate the survival of the great Demon King. Shiny reassures him not to worry, explaining that while the demon army lost its leader, the 5 most outstanding human heroes are also officially missing. She dramatically reenacts the cover story, claiming that both the Demon King and the heroes vanished in a mysterious flash when their ultimate attacks clashed. Shiny explains that with both armies distracted searching for their leaders, the group reached a consensus to leave the war's outcome ambiguous. She recounts a general's warning that humanity fears power and would eventually persecute the heroes once the Demon King was defeated. The prophecy predicted a dark era where the saviors would be deemed a greater threat than the evil they vanquished. Rather than being branded as villains by the people they saved, the heroines decided it was better to simply be reported missing. Shiny admits that while the warning bothered her, it was Yuukyuu's courtship that truly convinced her to abandon her former life. With a gentle smile, she declares that finding the man they love is far more important to them than heroism or fame. Yuukyuu is baffled by their willingness to abandon their families, but the girls immediately start bickering over who gets to pamper him first. One suggests using the absolute power of the jewel to force him to go for a romantic walk in the garden. Shiny aggressively interrupts, insisting that he must be starving and ordering him to the kitchen so she can stuff him with food. The Demon King panics and screams as he is bombarded with contradictory orders to go to different places simultaneously. The harassment escalates as they suggest bathing together and modifying the jewel to force him into intimate scenarios. Yuukyuu stares in horror, realizing he won't even be allowed to die as they plan to force him to sleep beside them. He learns the magical barrier extends beyond the house, crushing his hope and resigning him to a life of endless suffering. As he desperately scans the perimeter for an escape route, he freezes when he realizes Shiny is watching his every move. She leans in with a terrifying smile, correctly guessing his escape plan and warning him not to try anything foolish. Dismissing his resistance as shyness, she ominously decides that he simply requires a little more taming. Yuukyuu trembles, wondering if he really has no choice but to spend eternity living with his mortal enemies. A sudden, dark realization strikes him, and a sinister grin slowly spreads across his face as he concocts a plan. He looks down on the heroes with contempt, convinced that their infatuation has turned their brains to absolute mush. Deciding his dignity is already lost, he resolves to use the only strategy left to him: psychological manipulation. He vows to use his thousands of years of experience to completely shatter their love and force them to reject him. Adopting his villainous persona, he prepares to lie about a history of devouring countless beauties in both realms. Since the jewel prevents suicide, he decides to make himself so repulsive that they will be compelled to kill him themselves. With a wicked leer, he spins a graphic lie about violating women endlessly and making them scream for his amusement. He stands triumphantly over them, claiming he broke his victims into flesh dolls just to pass the time. He recalls the human saying that long love grows cold and prepares to test it with his grotesque fabrication. Confident in his scheme, he believes he has successfully extinguished their affection in a single, horrified instant. Spreading his arms wide, he taunts them to unleash their murderous intent and end his life right now. To his utter shock, the girls blush fiercely and excitedly ask if he really loves sex that much. Far from being disgusted, the heroes squeal in delight and declare his depraved confession to be absolutely ideal. The heroines tremble with heavy breaths, utterly captivated by the idea of a man possessing such a voracious and insatiable sexual appetite. Panic erupts as they pounce to strip him, forcing Yuukyuu to scream in terror and beg them to keep his clothes on. Driven by lust, the group declares that they cannot possibly let such a beautiful and sexy man escape their clutches now. They aggressively close in and demand that he embrace them immediately, begging him to break them just as he threatened. Yuukyuu stares in horror, realizing that his plan backfired because these women were already completely insane to begin with. He sinks into deep despair, lamenting that he has made another terrible decision and that everything he does goes wrong. As he screams at them to have some shame and kill him, a sudden spray of blood violently erupts into the air. The Demon King freezes in confusion, checking himself and realizing with shock that the blood splattering the room is not his own. He watches in stunned silence as the source is revealed to be a massive, collective nosebleed erupting from the overexcited girls. The 5 Valkyries collapse onto the floor in unison, completely incapacitated by the sheer volume of blood loss from their arousal. Yuukyuu stands over their unconscious bodies, confused but relieved to realize that their perversion has inadvertently saved his life. Despite the reprieve, he looks out at the desolate landscape and sighs, knowing that his desperate isolation remains unchanged. Lovely exclaims that it has been exactly 1 week since Yuukyuu arrived, declaring today a special occasion. She orders Shiny to prepare everything by the evening and ensures the room is cleaned thoroughly for the event. Yuukyuu recalls the chaos of that first day, noting with a mix of relief and confusion that none of the heroes actually died. He realizes the massive bloodshed was merely a collective nosebleed caused by their overwhelming excitement. Reflecting on their weakness for men, the Demon King muses he could have easily won the war just by deploying a handsome battalion. He accepts that while he discovered this strange path to victory, it is unfortunately far too late to exploit it. Analyzing his captors, he focuses on Lovely the Archer, noting that her perfect aim makes escape nearly impossible if she targets him. He shifts his attention to Kururu, the childlike master of stealth who likely decimated his battalions with poisons and hidden weapons. Divias poses a different threat as a master of martial arts whose fists can shatter steel and armor at close range. The mage Anist wields magic stronger than ancient demons and casts spells with terrifying speed despite her youth. Finally, he considers Shiny the swordswoman, a warrior with no weaknesses who wields a massive blade with delicate ease. Yuukyuu calculates that he could remove the binding jewel if the caster died, but he needs his horn to fight them. The problem remains that the magic is so strong he cannot determine which of the 5 girls actually placed the curse on him. He resolves to figure out the caster's identity first, but his plotting is interrupted by a sudden call. Shiny confronts him while wearing an apron, suspiciously asking if he is trying to escape again before demanding his attention. She assumes demons have different palates than humans and announces that she is taking charge of making dinner. Yuukyuu is genuinely surprised that a warrior like her cooks, and she demands to know his food preferences. Blushing deeply, Shiny insists that she loves cooking and prepared meals for everyone during their travels, finding nothing strange about it. The Demon King cynically muses that the world's balance is truly broken if men are now expected to do all the housework. He politely attempts to decline her offer, stating firmly that he would prefer to cook his own meals. Shiny violently rejects his refusal, shouting that she desperately wants the person she likes to eat her handmade food. Watching her reaction, Yuukyuu finds it hard to believe this blushing maiden is actually the world's strongest fighter. Her expression shifts to a dreamy grin as she admits she also wants to taste his cooking eventually. Yuukyuu stares in disbelief, wondering why she isn't the least bit worried that her mortal enemy might poison the food. Shiny immediately spirals into a fantasy, visualizing the Demon King wearing nothing but a naked apron while cooking. In her delusion, he turns to her with a seductive smile and announces that dinner is ready. The fantasy escalates as the imaginary Yuukyuu offers her a choice between a bath, dinner, or his own body. A fresh nosebleed erupts from her face, causing Yuukyuu to panic and scream at her to control herself. Wiping her face, Shiny snaps out of her daydream while Yuukyuu despairs that he was defeated by such weirdos. Recovering her composure, she asks if there are any foods he cannot eat since demon cuisine is similar to human fare. Shiny hums a happy tune in the kitchen, delighted that her cooking has been acknowledged. She proudly presents a seafood soup filled with fresh ingredients and urges him to taste it. Yuukyuu takes a sip and notes the sweetness of the onions melting into the seafood broth. He analyzes the rich flavor of bacon and potatoes, realizing the meal was prepared with genuine care. Shiny blushes with overwhelming joy when he compliments the dish as being worthy of a main course. Unable to contain her excitement, she pumps her fist in the air and cheers for her culinary victory. Yuukyuu watches her celebrate, thinking that she looks deceptively innocent for a warrior. Overcome by the thought of an indirect kiss, she panics and screams after tasting from his spoon. In her flustered state, she accidentally bites down too hard and devours the entire ceramic plate. Yuukyuu stares in horrified silence, wondering if even demons have the stomach to eat tableware. Shiny tries to laugh off her superhuman feat, joking that she might eat his fork next if he isn't careful. She spirals into a fantasy about the lethal effects of a real kiss if an indirect one causes such chaos. Suddenly shifting gears, she turns to him with a bright smile to deliver a warning. Feigning reluctance, she admits she feels bad saying this to her boyfriend but needs to be clear. Her expression darkens into a terrifying glare as she assures him that none of them will die from poison. Before he can react, she abruptly announces she needs water and sprints out of the kitchen. Anist appears and questions the mumbling demon king, who is still traumatized by the plate-eating incident. The mage suggests they take a walk since she has finished her job and has some free time. As they stroll, she remarks on the peaceful atmosphere and claims the power of love is amazing. She explains that love changes everything, compelling even heroes and demon kings to abandon their roles. Blushing deeply, she glances at him and suggests that "darling" might be a more appropriate title. Yuukyuu looks at her with concern, sensing a strange fear emanating from the powerful mage. Anist hugs herself, admitting that she was never afraid of weapons or magic until now. She confesses a desire to run away with him alone but knows they could never escape the others. With a somber expression, she apologizes to him for the reality that he is forced to live like this. Yuukyuu listens to her twisted logic, realizing she interprets his captivity as a form of mutual love. He observes her clear, honest eyes and is disturbed by the absolute purity of her delusion. A chill runs down his spine as he realizes she truly believes he loves her without a single doubt. Anist switches topics, noting with sympathy that the others stole all his morning affection. She leans in close, confidently guessing that deep down he actually wanted her to be the one holding him. Anist leans in close, projecting her twisted narrative onto Yuukyuu by claiming he feels dirty and weak because other women touched him. Her expression darkens as she accuses him of treating countless women like dolls in the past, justifying her need to fix him. Yuukyuu stares in horror as she charges a massive spell, realizing she intends to clean him up by blowing him up right here and now. He screams at the smiling mage in panic, asking if she has completely lost her mind as the magic swells. Anist ignores his pleas and calmly utters the command to detonate. A cataclysmic spell named Giga Burning End erupts, engulfing the Demon King in a blinding inferno. Anist looks down at his charred, skinless remains and casually asks if the process hurts. She immediately casts Giga Healing, cheerfully assuring him that there is no need to worry about the damage. As his flesh knits back together, she declares that his new, untouched body now belongs exclusively to her for his first true hug and kiss. Yuukyuu realizes with terror that despite her gentle appearance, she is likely the most dangerous monster in the entire house. Anist reaches out to embrace her new darling, but a massive explosion outside the barrier suddenly interrupts them. Through the clearing smoke, a gigantic reptilian eye glares down at them with predatory intent. Yuukyuu identifies the intruder immediately, shocked to see a legendary sky dragon hovering above them. He reels in disbelief that the beast managed to shatter his defensive barrier in only 2 hits. Analyzing the situation, he deduces that such a high-ranking monster wouldn't be in this peaceful area unless someone was controlling it. The other heroines rush to the scene in a panic, shouting to check if Anist and Yuukyuu are unharmed. Anist trembles with apocalyptic rage, furious that an intruder dared to disturb her private love nest. While the others prepare for battle, Yuukyuu narrows his eyes and realizes he may have just found his path to freedom.